Thanks for tuning in live to Proline TV, the Our Football Network, as we continue to preview the upcoming season in the NFL. And we're going to continue that today with some AFC South talk and the Tennessee Titans. And so Tyler Rowland is joining us from the Locked On Titans podcast. How's it going there, Tyler?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited that football is back with us. You know, it was a good summer. I loved summer. Everybody loves summer. It's so great. But I'm excited to have football back in our lives.
Yeah, of course, we don't have to worry about the summer heat and how effective it is, even though they've been getting a break over the last several years, and it probably continues. But that's another story for another day. We're here in a nice little air-conditioned room. We have the luxury of being able to talk about these teams. And so let's go ahead and do that by digging in deep on this Tennessee team. And I know the last time we spoke, and by the way, hopefully we won't have any major news that'll interrupt us, like the firing of a general manager on our last conversation. So I don't think that's going to happen. So anyway, as far as digging in deep here, I guess the thing that we should start off with is Cam Ward. So how's everything going with Cam? And what have you seen? I mean, what do you like so far?
Yeah, I think that Cam's checked all the boxes. I mean, you can't get your Hall of Fame jacket lined up right now in the off season when you haven't even played a game as a rookie. So you obviously got to take everything with a grain of salt. But for what he was expected to do and what you would want to see from him, to me, it's all about leadership. It's all about his command of the huddle, his understanding of the playbook, the things that he can prove right now, and the things that do matter right now as a guy who's got to come in and start from day one. He's expected to be the starter, and I think during mandatory minicamp, we saw the Tennessee Titans' best player, and I don't think anybody would argue this, is Jeffrey Simmons, their interior defensive lineman. He was voted the fourth best interior defensive lineman in the NFL on the ESPN top 10 rankings that came out recently, so that shows you how well respected Jeffrey Simmons is around the NFL. He's a trash talker, and Simmons has always been a guy that lets his presence be felt, even in practices. Well, right away, Cam Ward's going back at him, and those two have been barking and talking trash and, you know, having fun, being competitive, all that stuff. And when you have a new leader on offense who needs to establish himself, other guys on the team want to make sure that that's not somebody who's going to back down. That's somebody that I can count on. That's somebody who's going to rise to the challenge. And again, you know, don't fit him for the Hall of Fame jacket off an all-season program, but him kind of having the aura, as the kids would say, to be a starting quarterback in the NFL is what I was looking for most, and he's checked those boxes so far.
Was there going to be a competition at quarterback with Levis until Levis's injury, or was that one of those things where, yeah, there was going to be competition, but Ward was pretty much going to win it as long as he just did what he was supposed to do?
I think the competition thing is lip service from a new general manager, because I don't think it's about the quarterback position at that point. It's about the rest of the roster. You can't just be like, no, we're not having a competition. The rookie is the starter. That's the way that it is. We took him number one, obviously. But like, because that sends a bad message to the young cornerbacks and the young safeties and the young guards. And you know what I mean? It's just, you want to preach to the roster that no matter who you are or where you're at or where you came from, if you play hard enough, if you earn it, if you succeed, you're productive, that you'll be the starter. So you can't kind of cut that out from underneath. But the reality is, you drafted Cam Ward number one overall. You rolled out the red carpet. You had Warren Moon, an NFL legend, come in and unretire his jersey so that this kid could have it. He's starting, all right? Yeah. He's starting day one. We just saw Will Levis give away the season at times last year. There's just no way. And, you know, it's just one of those things where we all know the truth, but you got to say what you got to say. And maybe some people disagree with that fundamentally as a thing, but sure, that's the way that it works in the NFL. And they said what they had to say, but no, this was never going to be a competition. And quite frankly, Will Levis knew that all along as well.
Do you think when he comes back, you think he'll still be on this team, Levis? How's his contract?
You know, that's something that at the first practice of training camp, Brian Callahan answered a question about that, and he said that he was going to be having the surgery out in California. Immediately after that, he was going to be rehabbing in California, and they don't really have a concrete plan after that at this time, which leads me to believe that Levis's camp hasn't said, yeah, we'll be back after surgery, and the Titans haven't really asked if he's going to be back after surgery. just kind of let it go where it is. In my opinion, it is better for Cam Ward's development, and it is better for the football team for Levis to be away. And I think that's what's best for Levis as well. So sure. I think the best outcome is what's best for both. And I think that's also the simplest outcome now, which means it's probably likely to happen. And I wouldn't expect Levis to be back with the team this year, in my opinion.
All right. Yeah, and it's better for the NFL too, because we know the NFL can use better quarterback play, and hopefully Will can go somewhere, develop, and maybe even become a starter because he's got the tools. He just was thrust in too soon, which is it's the NFL today. You throw these kids in, they're not ready, and then you wait, and we've seen this happen time and time again lately, the Darnolds of the world, and so hopefully that'll happen to Will Levis as well. Okay. Speaking of newness, Mike Bergonzi. I know that we're still not even through a season yet, but what do you think about how he's, sprinkled his personnel DNA on this team so far? Because when we talked about 6 months ago, whatever, before the draft, man, you really laid it on thick as far as how weak the personnel was on this team. So I know it's only one off season, but how do you think he's done so far?
Well, I think he's done what he could. And I think they want to be a team, they have preached, they have told us this. They want to be a team that drafts and develops. They're not a team that needs to be going out and making big splashes in free agency. They need to build a team from the ground up. You earn free agency by being good in the draft and building a team. Then you can go add a Saquon Barkley, you know what I mean, and really make a splash signing here and there. When you're a team that tries to build half the roster off splash signings, like the Titans or the Jacksonville Jaguars, who were notorious for doing this at times in my lifetime, for sure, that doesn't work quite as well. You don't have guys as much bought in. They want to draft, develop, and pay. That's what you want to do to build your team. And after you do that, you can afford to bring guys into your culture who you may not know as well because they'll probably assimilate when you have a strong culture. So I like that Bergonzi has only spent one big contract, and it's been at left tackle where the Titans desperately needed help the most, the offensive line. They cannot function as a team without a better offensive line than they've had in recent years. The draft class, I like. The Femi Oladipo, the second-round pick, is a developmental player. They're a rebuilding team. He has a high ceiling. That's the type of player you go after when you're a team like this because you need big hits. And same thing, Kevin Winston Jr. at safety, coming off an ACL tear, so he missed the season, but looked like a high first-round talent, or at least a first-round talent at minimum in his season prior to last year at Penn State. So I think they made smart choices. Will it work? I don't know, but I will say this. The day before training camp, Mike Bergonzi was at a press conference for the Titans, and someone asked, is this a Super Bowl team? Which, who are you? What are you doing? But it was funny because, the president of football operations, Chad Brinker, who was there, he kind of smirked. And Mike Bergonzi said, obviously that's the goal every year, but we know we got a lot of work to do. And it was just like a perfect answer. So, yeah, we haven't played a season. Can't judge a GM for a couple of years, quite honestly. But I like at least the philosophy of the moves that he's made so far. And every public appearance and statement that he's made, he seems to understand the situation. And that understanding should lead to smart moves going forward.
Yeah, I actually liked Tennessee's draft class. I gave them an A. I thought they did really well because I really do like the kid from UCLA that you mentioned. I think, watching Schlesinger and then seeing this kid, it's like, wait, who's that guy? And then all of a sudden you start watching him and zeroing in on him, and you're like, wow, this kid looks like if he can just develop that skill that he just started to develop out of nowhere, then they might have something. And like you said, that's you have to have a good coaching staff. And do you think that the Titans have the right guys now? I don't know how many new coaches they brought in from last offseason, but do you think that they have those types of coaches now?
They really only kind of shuffled a few spots. The big spot that they shuffled was special teams coordinator, where they brought in Bones Fossil, and he's one of the best special teams coaches in the NFL. That's you feel pretty good that you'll improve there. But I do think the coaching staff overall is solid. You have Tyke Tolbert at wide receiver, who's a real high-energy teacher, and obviously Bill Callahan, one of the most respected offensive line minds in NFL history. You have to hope with better talent that he can really take them to the next level. I think Denard Wilson Wilson is a blossoming defensive coordinator on the defensive side who really gets the most out of secondary play, which you think about Kevin Winston and what he can do there. That could be a pretty good pairing if Wilson can get the best out of him going forward. So I think the coaching staff is solid. The one coach that I'm not as certain about is Brian Callahan, the head coach. A lot of these guys, just are offensive coordinators. They don't have kind of the moxie and the leadership and the CEO pelts on the wall to be the leader of the whole football team. And I think Brian Callahan would tell you that truth, and he's publicly said things similar to, I need to be more involved in the defense and special teams this year. I was too involved in the offense. He never even called plays in the NFL before he got hired to be the head coach for the Titans. So last year was his first year as a play caller and offensive coordinator, and he has an offensive coordinator, but he is the play calling offensive coordinator and the head coach of a football team. He was 39 years old. It's like, that's a lot to learn. That's a lot on somebody. So Brian Callahan is the one I have questions about. There should be a big leap from him from year 1 to year 2, and I think that would help the Titans as much as any player on the field. But I think that the rest of the coaching staff, other than Brian Callahan, I do think is good enough to pilot a good team. And I think with a guy like Femi Oladipo, who kind of started this conversation as an off-ball linebacker who transitioned to edge the last 6 games of his final college season, he's got so much room to develop and so much room to grow. But at the Senior Bowl, if you look at the Senior Bowl practice reps, he's flying off the line of scrimmage. He has great strength, great power. So can the Titans coaching staff develop that? And just 2 days ago, or a couple of days ago, right before training camp, Lorenzo Carter, a veteran linebacker the Titans signed just a few months ago in free agency, retired suddenly, the day before training camp. That's going to give Femi Oladipo even more opportunities and reps to practice and hone those skills. I would expect him to his conditioning to be tested during training camp, because they're going to give him all that he can handle. Because if he doesn't step up, we might be talking about the worst pass rush in the entire NFL.
Yeah, and it was interesting because going back to Callahan, of course, and that is the fact that you do wonder sometimes why specific coaches are hired because I remember just recently, obviously as a Jet fan, when Aaron Glenn was hired, and he couldn't talk more about how immediately it was about how he's not just going to be zeroing in on defense. It's going to be about overlooking the entire team, spending as much time with the offense as the defense. And you do wonder when they get into these interview rooms and try to give their spiel as far as being a head coach. And again, the other general manager's not here anymore. So that is another thing to keep in mind. But you do wonder, well, how was he sold? How could he sell them when he's never called plays before? And he wasn't a CEO last year, so he must not have said he was going to be CEO. So you know what I'm saying? It's like very interesting on how a guy like Callahan would have won a job like this, but apparently he convinced the right people at that time. And now the hope is that they've got a good guy, and he just needs a little bit of time.
Well, it does make you worry, because what we were sold when Brian Callahan was hired is that he fit perfectly with Ran Carthon, the Titans general manager, who they fired. And it's like, there's been this domino effect of they bring in Ran Carthon with Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel, we now know from the reporting around the situation, never wanted Ran Carthon, wanted Ran Carthon to be the assistant general manager, to hire a different general. That's not who he wanted to work with. And then because Mike Vrabel doesn't work well with Ran Carthon, they fire Mike Vrabel. Then they hire Brian Callahan because he works well with Ran Carthon. But then a year later, you fire Ran Carthon. So it's like you fired Vrabel because he couldn't work with this guy, and you hired this guy because he could work with this guy. But now you don't even want that guy in the first place. So what were you doing? So I think while everyone in Tennessee, Chad Brinker, the president of football operations, Mike Borgonzi, the new general manager who they hired this year, who was in Kansas City for over a decade, they both have said they believe in Brian Callahan. They said it literally the day before training camp. We believe in Brian Callahan, and I think Brian Callahan will be a good coach in the NFL, but it may be as an offensive coordinator after he gets fired from being a head coach as the Titans, because he's 40 and he's not quite ready to be a head coach yet, and he'll go somewhere. He'll be a great offensive coordinator for 3 or 4 years, and then he'll get another opportunity as a head coach, and he'll do better that time. Like, I think that's reasonable. I don't think that it's Brian Callahan's a bad football coach or head coach forever, but it's possible, and we see this a lot, that maybe he just wasn't quite ready for this. But Ran Carthon, was like Jafar and convinced the whole kingdom in Tennessee that he knew what he was doing. And then by the time they figured out, oh no, we've been tricked. Well, we can't fire Brian Callahan because we don't want to pay him, Mike Vrabel, and a new guy. Let's just ride this out. We're not going to be that good for this year anyway. See what he does. If he's really good, then we'll stick with him. If not, we'll let Mike Borgonzi hire his own guy, and we'll go from there. So I think Brian Callahan's status is the most under-discussed but incredibly important thing in Tennessee, and I think it's because he's so nice. He's such a nice person. He's so open to the media. Mike Vrabel was out there first day of Patriots camp calling one of the media guys an idiot because he's not paying attention to the other questions. I answered that 5 minutes ago. You want to go back and blah, 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 like scolding them. And Brian Callahan's like, nice to meet all of you. Hello, good day. Yes. Very transparent with his football answers. And I think the media people, because he's so nice, maybe don't want to like be as open about, hey, like, this guy's going to get fired if this goes really bad. He's got a new GM that didn't bring him in. Like everything I've explained so far means this dude is on an incredibly hot seat, but nobody acts like that in Tennessee locally around the team. So be very interesting to see what actually happens at the end of the year, and that'll be determined by how many games they win. But there are big questions about Brian Callahan right now.
Okay, so how about, I mean, is there a chance that if he can, of course, Cam Ward, the development of that player is just so monumental that if, let's say they don't win as many games, I think Vegas, we'll talk about even later, they're at around 5.5, 6.5 in that range. Mm-hmm. So even if they don't hit that mark, let's say 4 wins, 5 wins, but Ward shows really good development and it looks like things are going well. Do you think that will matter more? And they'll say, hey, you know what? I like where this is going. Maybe, maybe we still have to do this, that, or the other thing. Or maybe Brian could have been a little bit better as a head coach. But overall, he's working well with Cam.
Can we be honest?
Sure.
I think that might be the best possible outcome for the Titans this year. For them to win 5 games, but Cam Ward to look great. Yeah. For it to be, the pass rush is clearly awful. L'Jarius Sneed wasn't ready to play. Complete bust of a signing. The cornerback room is bad. The young linebackers behind a veteran, not quite good enough yet. The offensive line, Dan Moore, who they gave $22 million to, led the NFL in sacks allowed last year from Pittsburgh. Yeah, that was probably not a great signing. Or the young wide receivers, they have Calvin Ridley and Van Jefferson and Tyler Lockett, and then a bunch of rookies who they're hoping to step up. They're promising, but not quite there yet. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like the best outcome for the Titans is for them to be like, Cam Ward's the guy. We know that. The team has to get better around him. Because that's what we already think and know right now. So for that to, or hope for right now, for that to be true at the end of the season, Brian Callahan did great with Cam Ward. The offense was explosive. The defense took a big step back statistically, even though last year it was fraudulent because of how bad the special teams was. And they win like 5 or 6 games, still get a top 10 draft pick because the team is devoid of star talent. Yep. Get a star in the draft. There's a ton of good edge rushers. Trade back with all the quarterbacks that could come out. Stack the roster. Get a first-round pick in 2027. Like, having a great draft pick and Cam Ward being awesome is realistically the best outcome for the team because they're still far away from a talent level perspective. And they could go out and win 7, 8, 9 games because Cam's really good. Things just break their way, but they're going to need to make a big move in some way to get big time talent because they're not going to get it from that range and they're missing it right now.
Yeah. Maybe, maybe Callahan can be a Zach Taylor. That
the Bengals route is all they're hoping for. Think Joe Burrow. I mean, they don't want Cam Ward to get hurt, but Joe Burrow got hurt at the 2/3 mark of the season. The Bengals get a top 5 pick. They get Jamar Chase. And then a season later, they're in the Super Bowl. Yeah. Like the Titans are thinking right now, all right, we had our bad first year under Zach Taylor, and we got Joe Burrow, Cam Ward. Yeah. Now we have Cam looks good, and we know he's the guy, but we still get a really good pick. We get our edge rusher 1 of the future, like a TJ Parker or Reuben Bain or, whoever, whatever like that. And then the next year after that, we're a contender again. We're back. We're opening a new stadium in 2027 where Cam Ward's the guy. He's a great quarterback. That is the path that the Titans have to hope that they're going down right now.
Okay. Let's run through this then. Let's start. First of all, you mentioned Sneed. I know Cushenberry also coming back from injury. So what are the injury statuses look like coming into camp? As far
Well,
as the
those
top
are the
guys?
two. Yeah, I mean, those two guys are on PUP. L'Jarius Sneed had a setback in April and had another procedure on his knee in May. He should be back. They're saying able to play for week 1, but I mean, at this point, how can you rely on any of that in any way? I don't think that you can, but he's going to start training camp on the PUP. So is it Lloyd Cushenberry, the Titans center, who they signed in free agency last year. He had an Achilles tear in the season. He's 28 years old. I think he should be able to come back and be a good player, but that's a heavy man playing a physical position on a repaired Achilles. I would take my time with him. Longtime veteran backup center Corey Levin has taken the first team snaps right now for the team, and I think they'll feel confident in him to let Lloyd take his time and come back healthy. Other than that, there's not a lot to discuss. The Titans are mostly healthy. Kevin Winston, the guy who we've talked about earlier, safety out of Penn State, who they drafted in the 3rd round. He had an ACL tear last year in like the 3rd week of the college football season, but he's been cleared full go to participate in training camp. And Traylon Burks is back from his ACL tear. He's full go in training camp. So the Titans don't really have any major injury problems right now, knock on wood, of course, other than L'Jarius Sneed and Lloyd Cushenberry, which were to be expected. So that's really where they're at right now. And honestly, let's hope it stays that way.
Absolute injuries. I hate them.
Yeah, it's the worst.
Yeah. Okay. So speaking of Burks, and we're taking a look, because I want to go over some camp battles for Titan fans, especially if they're going to head down to training camp. What should they zero in on? So it looks like you mentioned Jefferson, of course, and I know Jefferson's one of those guys that, good run blocker, good professional, all that kind of stuff. But is there a chance that either one of those rookies by the end of the year, as far as playing time, could end up with the 3rd most snaps, beating out Jefferson? I'm assuming Lockett will probably be number 2. Ridley, obviously, 1. But what do you think because I really like Eumenor. I like him a lot. I think he's got some great talent. I think he could be a really good pro. So, what do you think about that spot?
Well, that's where I'm going there. And I would say this. We might see a situation where Van Jefferson actually gets more snaps than Tyler Lockett. Okay. And we could see Calvin Ridley a little more in the slot, which would help him as he ages to make sure he's getting off press coverage, and they could use him in motion, utilize his speed. Tyler Lockett is a guy who they signed right before the draft and wanted to make sure that they had a veteran wide receiver in there. But I think Tyler Lockett is a guy who we could look at and be like, oh, it's Tyler Lockett. But he really started to slow down last year, and I think he could end up being in a wide receiver 4 or wide receiver 5 role for the Titans when it comes to snaps by the end of the year. And I agree. It's Alec Iomanor. He is the guy who I'm looking at. I think he can make a major impact because he has a skill set that the Titans don't have a lot of. He's 6'2", 215 pounds, but he runs smooth routes. He's a real smooth mover. He doesn't look overly clunky or big or anything like that, but he also is incredible in contested catch situations. I did a film breakdown on my film channel, Tic Tac Titans on YouTube, where I looked at Iomanor's one-on-one matchup with Travis Hunter from their junior year, the year before last. And he went absolutely nuts on Travis Hunter. Randy Moss catches all over him, catching the ball, breaking tackles, yards after catch. He looks like a guy who, if I looked at any of the young wide receivers on this team and I'm like, okay, this guy could have an explosion this year and turn into a guy who it's like, oh, this is one of the better young wide receivers in the league, maybe like a Nico Collins style. I'm not saying their games are exactly the same, although somewhat similar, but he could have that style of rise. If there's one guy on the team who could break it open for the Titans, it is Iomanor. And because he is a big physical X receiver, which Van Jefferson can play that, but you don't really want him there all the time. Calvin Ridley is not that at all. You want him in the Z or the slot. Lockett is certainly not a big physical X receiver. Chim Dike, the 4th-round draft pick out of Florida, is more of a slot speed guy. And Xavier Restrepo, who most people know, is more of like your Wes Welker, Danny Amendola kind of quick slot guy. So none of those guys, other than Iomanor, is a pure X receiver. So I think he could ascend not only because of his talent level, but also because of his skill set and where it fits in the offense. And first day of training camp, he's got 3 catches, making people make tweets with eyeball emojis. But he is, he has been impressive early on. No pads yet. So
Sure.
but you would think that would only help him because he is such a big physical threat.
Yeah, I picked him in my rookie dynasty draft, so I'm pretty happy about that so far. Okay, so what about? By the way, Restrepo, from what you've seen, do you agree with what he said about his 40 time? That you really shouldn't look at that. That I wasn't 100%. I'm not that slow, basically, because it did seem like out of, I don't know if character is the right word, but I mean, you watch him play college football for a couple of years, and it's like, this guy knows how to play college football. He should have been drafted. So what do you think about Restrepo? Because it's amazing that he's even in this position where he's a college free agent trying to make a team.
You know what? The way that I look at it is, even if that is his 40 time and it wasn't like an injury or an ankle or whatever, not everybody in football has to be a Blazer. Like, guys can win. Like, is Travis Kelce the fastest tight end on the field? Yeah. No, he's a good athlete, but he's not like a dude who's like a burner or anything. Some guys, you could just feel it. You could just, your instincts, you got that spidey sense about you. Was Tom Brady the greatest athlete? No, but watch him maneuver the pocket. Joe Burrow is not Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, but he can maneuver the pocket, and because he just can feel it. He's just got it. Yep. When we talk, everybody acknowledges the it factor in life and business and what, some people just got it. And it may not be perfect on paper. It doesn't quite make all the sense in the world. Biggest, fastest, strongest, all that. It just works. And that's Xavier Restrepo. So is he going to be the next Amon-Ra St. Brown and turn it? No, I don't think that's going to be the case. But I absolutely think he can be a solid role player. And the Titans have gone through Nick Williams, Adam Humphries, Kyle Phillips for a few years. They've been looking for this style of pure slot passing down receiver for a while. And there's no reason that Xavier Restrepo, even if his 40 time is legit and he's slow, we say slow, he would beat me in a race. Right? But there's no reason that should preclude him from being able to have a successful NFL career and be a contributor, especially with the chemistry that he has with Cam Ward. And for the record, during mandatory minicamp and off-season programs, he was catching passes from all the quarterbacks and moving the chains in third down situations and stuff like that. So he's gonna get open. Some guys just got it, and X does.
Well, you hit it on the head, too, with his development with Ward. I mean, that matters. And especially when you're a college free agent trying to make a team and trying to impress, to have that edge, to have that relationship, that matters. Okay, tight end position. Is that, it's deeper now that it's been in a few years. Wiley's getting up there being a third-year guy. Gunnar Helm is a fourth-round draft pick. So is this now going to be coming into camp a real interesting competition, or is it, we know who the 1, we know who the 2, and we know who the 3 are?
Well, I have been saying that I think Gunnar Helm will be tight end 1 in terms of the most snaps at the position, but I also think, this year, I do. But I think that Chigakonkwo, who is going into his 4th season, he could have the best stats of the group. You know what I mean? Both those things being true
fantasy-wise
at the same time.
Yeah.
Okonkwo now, because you have Gunnar Helm, who can be more of a traditional wide tight end with his hand in the dirt next to the offensive lineman, that can free up Okonkwo to be more of that off the line of scrimmage tight end, that H-back style tight end, motion into the backfield in the fullback position, come off play action into the flat, dump it off, get down the field, go in motion out of the backfield, run a real wheel route down the sideline. He's got 4.39 speed, one of the fastest tight ends in the league. They can use him more as a chess piece weapon, and he doesn't have to be that tight end on the line of scrimmage doing normal tight end stuff, which at 6'2", 230 pounds, he looks even slimmer this year. He's just not good at those things. He's never developed into that kind of blocker. Now, what I will say is, earlier in the offseason, Titans GM Mike Borgonzi did say that the tight end position has evolved. It's more like running back, where you're tight end by committee, because there aren't a lot of 6'5" big tight ends who are good blockers, who also are good enough in the passing game. Like George Kittle's just aren't out there. That's why he's George Kittle. There's not a lot of them. And I think with that in mind, if Gunnar Helm is in his role as that tight end, you look at Cincinnati offenses, which Brian Callahan was a part of. They had Hayden Hurst and CJ Uzama, and now they're using Mike Gesicki. Like, they like to be in 3 wide receiver. They like to have 1 tight end that they have out there that can do a little bit of everything. I think the Titans will mix in a little more 2 tight end because of the Bill Callahan run game influence on the team. But at the end of the day, Brian Callahan, when he goes to sleep at night, his nightgown is 3 wide receivers. That's what he's most comfortable in, is 3 wide receiver. So I think with that Gunnar Helm skill set, him being 6'5", 250, better blocker, just a bigger body than Chigakonkwo, while also having good receiving skills coming out of Texas, going for nearly 900 yards last year, and great hands and contested ability. I just think his versatile skill set will fit better with what Brian Callahan wants to do on a snap-by-snap basis. Even if Chigakonkwo turns into the more explosive weapon and outproduces, I think Helm will be on the field most of the time when Okonkwo is as well, and the snaps will be very similar.
Do you foresee Pollard, Spears, they're going to share duties? And then the other question is regarding the running back room. Is there a legitimate competition there for number 3 job? And how many running backs do you think they'll end up keeping?
I think there is a legitimate competition for the number 3 job, but I ultimately think they end up keeping 4, and the reason for that is they keep bringing in new running backs. They have churned the 5th running back. Now they're bringing in a 6th running back for training camp. So it just seems like they really want to have multiple running backs. I think they're worried about Tony Pollard wearing down after the workload that he had last year. I think there will be a drop-off in play from Tony Pollard this year after that workload. I just don't think he is not meant to be a bell cow back.
No.
Like, he's not replacing Derrick Henry. He can be the featured back in a committee approach. That is understandable. But after being that for the last couple of years, and last year truly being a bell cow for the Titans, not a featured back, he was a bell cow last year, I think that's going to break him down. So they got to have Tajay Spears to step up. But Tajay Spears doesn't even have an ACL in his knee, which hasn't really been a major problem for him, but he has had soft tissue injuries. He missed some games last year. He was not as productive last year as people thought he was going to be. So if he has another down year and Pollard starts to slip, now you don't truly have a back that you can count on. And it could be, I think it's a thing that Titans fans aren't looking at enough, is that next year, the Titans could have 2 brand new running backs by this time next year if Spears disappoints and Pollard breaks down, which I think are in the realm of possibility. It's not like you need 2 insane outcomes to happen for those things to happen. So I think the Titans running back room looks settled for right now. I think they need a lot more out of Tajay Spears, but Mullings, I think, is going to be more of a special teams guy. He's a bigger back. Maybe he can just help on the goal line, as you know. But I don't think he's going to be someone you want to give the ball to a ton. And Chestnut, for the life of me, I can't figure out how he's still on the team. It's just the devil that you know instead of the devil that you don't know, I guess. But Chestnut is not a super gifted runner, in my opinion, although he's a better runner than he is a special teams player. But it's like, I think they're going to end up keeping both of those guys if they can't find somebody else that they like, and they're going to try.
Yeah, and you might even see a running back that is on another team right now that ends up as a number 3 by week 1.
The Titans have the number 1 waiver claim, so they can have the number 1 choice of anyone who gets waived from now until the regular season starts.
Yeah, Mullings, I mean, I'm a Michigan fan, and I was actually surprised he got drafted. I know he was a 6th round, 7th round guy, but he's a one-dimensional guy, and he's not really offer much.
They're hoping he's a special teams demon.
There you go.
Honestly, that's what they're, as a converted linebacker who's a running back now, I think they're really hoping that he can be a special teamer.
Nice one. Before I move over to defense, is the offensive line on paper, if everybody's healthy, being equal, is every position set now?
Yes, 100%. I mean, Lloyd Cushenberry is going to start on PUP, and Corey Levin is going to be the starting center for right now until he comes back. But I think for the most part, when Cushenberry comes back, he's going to be the starter. So I don't think there are any battles outside of the depth positions. The starting 5 is pretty locked in.
Okay. And is there any battles at all as far as the offensive line is concerned? Because there's not a lot of can't miss definite guys there. So
yeah, I think it's all a big battle. I think the Titans brought in a ton of depth that had starting experience. Ali Udo at tackle, Brandon Jamies at center, and Sam Mustipher at guard. All of those guys have double-digit games of starting experience. I think they combined for 60 or so starting games. So they're going to push some of the younger guys like Ajuku and Duncan and Crenshaw Dixon at offensive tackle. But I think Blake Hance at guard is a guy who has some tackle experience, but also can be a big 6'5" guard if you need him. I think he's got a great chance to make it as the first interior offensive lineman backup. Okay. Jackson Slater is the draft pick, so I think he has a great chance to make it, which leaves one spot for a backup tackle, which means those four guys we just talked about fighting for one spot. I'm going to bet on Udo just because I think they need someone they can count on who has that starting experience if they need over younger guys who have been disappointments. But boy, they seem to still love Jalen Duncan, the 6th-round pick from 2023, and I'm not a big fan of his. So we'll see who gets that final O-line spot, but I think they keep 9.
Okay. You mentioned that the cornerback spot overall could be an issue, especially if Snead isn't healthy. And he's been one big issue since he's been on the team. We know that. But how does this entire secondary look when you're going to be watching these guys during camp, preseason games? What are we looking at? What are the more interesting fights for playing time?
Well, I think at the top, we're going to see Darrell Baker Jr. and then Gabe Judy Lawley, who is a second-year player who was an undrafted free agent. Darrell Baker was out with some shoulder stuff during times of the offseason program. He's good to go now and back and everything, but Gabe Judy Lawley was the guy getting those first-team reps with Jarvis Brownlee Jr. and Roger McCreary. And outside of that, who else would really get him is the problem for the Titans. Marcus Harris was the 6th-round pick, but he's 5'11", 190-pound speed guy. He's more of a slot guy, in my opinion. Jamari Harris out of Iowa is a little bit bigger guy, so maybe he could take.
As a
me
CFA.
Too.
Yeah.
I think he has an opportunity to really crack in there with L'Jarius Snead's absence because they're going to need another backup boundary corner. I think him and Gabe Judy Lawley, Harris and Gabe Judy Lawley will fight for that third outside corner guy. You have your two starters, the primary backup and Darrell Baker, and then those two guys fighting for that next spot. And then Harris will probably be the third slot guy. I think they'll have 5 or 6 cornerbacks, but they have, 6 or 7 undrafted free agent type guys fighting there at the back end. So there's questions at the top because of L'Jarius Snead, but there's questions at the bottom too. Roger McCreary and Jarvis Brownlee Jr. are good players. That's what we know. But everything outside of them is a major question mark. Safety I'm much less concerned about, especially after Kevin Winston was declared a full go. I think he's a very talented player. Yep. Mike Brown is a good backup safety, in my opinion, as a 4th safety. But a lot of teams, and the Titans do this, use 3 safeties quite a bit. Dime packages, where one of your third safety is a linebacker in the box on passing downs, and then your 2 primary safeties are back. Or maybe you want your number 1 safety being that box safety because that's a skill set they have, and your backup safety is just a pure center fielder. You know what I mean? Like, you can do it however you want it, but I think having Kevin Winston, who can play in the box early on, allow Amani Hooker to be that rangy safety over the back and use his ball skills, 4 interceptions last season, like that is a good sign for the Titans back end with the safety group that Winston is ready to go and can get a fresh start to training camp off the ACL.
Okay. In the front 7, you talked about edge rush issues. So if you had to guess, who's going to lead the team in sacks?
I hope that it's Jeffrey Simmons. We've been waiting for that double-digit sack Jeffrey Simmons experience, and it hasn't happened since his 2 all-pro seasons a couple of years ago. He's had 5 sacks the last 2 years, which is a disappointment for a guy who should be a top 5 interior defensive lineman in the NFL. That's simply not good enough, and he got a $100 million contract last offseason. We need to see a little bit more from Jeffrey Simmons this year, but I guess Arden Key, in my opinion, is a good third edge rusher on a team. Like, he's a
Specialist.
tertiary rusher, rotational guy. For him to be your starting number one edge just shows you how bad the Titans pass rush situation is. But Arden Key does have good pressure rates. Like, he does get good pressure on the quarterback when he gets rush opportunities. It's his letdowns against the run on early downs, inability to set the edge, and then his inability to turn that pressure sometimes into sacks. Like, he just doesn't capitalize on those enough. It was funny because Harold Landry led the Titans in sacks last year with 9 sacks. They cut him to save money, and he went to New England, but his pressure rates were some of the worst in the NFL. Like, he literally got lucky and got clean-up sacks. And then Arden Key had some great 60% pressure rate, but only had, 4 sacks, 4.5 sacks, and it's like, how does this happen? Like, why is this happening? So I guess I'd have to say Arden Key if I had to give you an answer, but I hope I'm wrong, and I hope it's Jeffrey Simmons.
Okay. What about inside at linebacker? Any of these guys? I know Cedric Gray with the injury and all that, but I liked Gray coming out of college last year. I thought he was an intriguing player. Is there a player or two there that the Titans can zero in on?
The number one player that we have to talk about right now is James Williams. He was a 7th-round pick out of Miami last year. He was a safety at Miami. He was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. He's been converted to linebacker by the Titans. He played more than Cedric Gray last year because Gray had an injury during camp that kind of delayed his ability. And so far this year, Williams has stepped up, and now he is in that starting role next to Cody Barton. He's getting the first-team reps next to Cody Barton as an inside linebacker right now. And as a guy who was a converted safety, you hear that and you think, oh, he's better in pass coverage. He must, but not really. Williams is 6'4". He was 250 pounds as a safety. He was a guy who wasn't very good in coverage, which is why he got converted to linebacker, but he will hit you. He is big. He is physical. He's a downhill threat. So what does that sound like? Sounds like a linebacker. So he got converted to linebacker by the Titans, which was the plan for most NFL teams. And Williams knew that in the pre-draft process, that he would be a guy who would be converted to linebacker. But he has good instincts in coverage because he was a safety. He's used to seeing all the route coverage. But how to convert that instincts into where to be as a linebacker is something that he was working with last year. And maybe after an all season, now that he's comfortable at his position, if he could take those instincts in coverage as a linebacker and combine that with his downhill physicality that his just natural body composition gives him, he could be a really, really good player. He plays with violence and tenacity. I'm very excited about him. He's been my pick all season for the guy who will win the battle. And with Otis Reese being a guy who's 27 years old and maybe about to be phased out as a guy who, hasn't taken advantage of the opportunity, and with James Williams being ahead of Cedric Gray, I think that gives Williams a great advantage to win that job, but he's going to have to earn it in camp, but he's given the opportunity to do it.
Okay. And then finally, the defensive front. Of course, we know about Simmons. Sweat was a high draft pick last year. Yep. And then there's, of course, the depth, which, again, might be a big issue. I do like O'Malley and Bleedy. I think they're interesting prospects to keep an eye on. But talk about, I guess, Sweat and whether or not what is his role come in the future as a high pick? Again, not with this regime, but still he's got talent. And then who's fighting for the big contributor spots after the starters?
Well, I think Sweat needs to take a big jump up. He's another guy who, like we talked about with Arden Key, his pressure rates are pretty good. T'Vondre Sweat got pressure on quarterbacks when he pass rushed, but he's just not able to turn that into sacks. And that was a problem that he had on his college tape too. He whiffed on sacks. He got close and just couldn't, adjust and change direction at the last moment to get it done. Things like that. So he's got to take that step forward. But last year he did all he could as a run stuffer. Like he's a good physical run stuffer, and he's going to be that. But that's not going to be worth the number 38 pick in the draft if he can't also factor as a pass rusher. He needs to be closer to Vita Vea and Dexter Lawrence than he is, a standard DJ Reader type nose tackle. It's a run stuffer. You could find run stuffing nose tackles way later in the draft and undrafted free agency. To use a 2nd-round pick on a guy like that, they got to be more than just a run stuffer. So they need to see a big jump from him. But after Simmons and Sweat, I think Sebastian Joseph Day is a nice, solid veteran. He's a Jag. He's just another guy, but he's a solid roster guy. Glad they got him back for depth. He played well last year. But after that, it's ugly. Like Keandre Coburn is the backup nose tackle to Sweat. He was his teammate in college. They said he's a mentor. I call him a babysitter. He's here to babysit T'Vondre Sweat and make sure he's doing the right things. And then they've added so many undrafted free agents. You named a couple of them, and O'Malley and Bleedy. They just don't have good talent on the defensive line. And if you go look at free agency lists, who's available, there is no talent really on the interior defensive line right now. They brought back James Lynch, who was a guy who was with the team last year. That's probably because they knew these younger guys are just not getting it done. We just need to get someone in here. But that interior defensive line depth, they've had so many needs in the draft the last couple of years that they haven't been able to use their day 3 picks to stock that with better talent. So they've been really relying on undrafted free agents, and it just hasn't come to fruition with any of them. And they've had to go back to bad veterans, and they're in the same exact spot this year.
Okay. And by the way, special teams, there's been some changes here. So what do you think about this unit? You mentioned, of course, they have a new man in charge. That's good news. Yes. So, I mean, it looks like there's no competition, that they're set here at punter and kicker. It's just a matter of whether these guys will get it done.
Yeah, it's all about the returners. You know what I mean? Like that's the only thing that's up in the air, and you have the names, right? Chim DK, 4th-round pick out of Florida, a ton of speed. That's really a place where he can add value. Xavier Restrepo's got to find a way to be a backup at least. So once they get that in order, everything else, yes, is set. They bring in Joey Sly. It's funny, they had Nick Folk last year, who was an older kicker that had great accuracy and was losing his power. And they had a punter in Ryan Stonehouse who had great power but terrible touch and accuracy on his punts. And they flipped that entirely. Now they have a kicker with a bomb leg but shaky accuracy, and a punter with a weak leg who's gotten older in his mid-30s but with great accuracy and touch. They've just totally flipped their philosophies with both their kicking specialists. So it's funny how that works. Morgan Cox is the greatest long snapper of all time, maybe number 2 or 3. He was voted to the NFL All-Century team as the long snapper. He's been in the NFL for like 22 years now, first team All-Pro, a couple of years with the Ravens. He is from Tennessee, lives in Tennessee. They're going to let him long snap as long as he freaking wants to. So he's in his 40s. They're like, whatever, keep going. So yeah, they're pretty much set with everything on the special teams. We've talked about the young wide receivers, talked about, the linebacker competition, talked about what they could have on edge. That's a pretty comprehensive look at the team, and it'll be interesting. Yeah. The Titans are one of these teams that could really take a step forward and be a fun team to watch, or really realize that, they got to make major changes again this offseason.
Yeah, just closing out, look at their win total again. As I mentioned, they're at 6.5.
It's up. It came out 5.5, I thought. So
yeah, well,
it's
5.5 minus 150, so that's moving to 6.5. Yeah.
There's a little optimism out there for the little old Tennessee Titans.
How's the schedule? Is the schedule manageable for them to be?
The schedule is manageable. There are some tough ones, and there's a difficult stretch in there. But I think that they have a tough week 1 game, though. If I give you any gambling advice on here, is hammer the Denver Broncos at home in week 1.
Yeah.
They're going to beat the Titans by 2 touchdowns, in my opinion. But the rest of the season, I do think the Titans have some excuse me. Oh, man. Talking about the Titans winning makes me feel allergic. Like, it's just like, don't do it. But I think that the AFC South is still not a super scary division, and I could see the Texans maybe taking a step back this year. So the Titans could get a couple of half their wins right there. I think that gives them a good chance to get to. I would go with 6. I don't know that I could go over 6. I would go 6, and I think that would be a good season for the Titans.
So, you might have to eat a little there in the minus 150, but
there's no value on it anymore, man. What's going on with that?
Not right now, but you could do some shopping. You never know. You might be able to find something worth your while. Okay, so again, awesome job, Tyler. You got the podcast, as I mentioned, the Titans, Locked On Titans podcast, and how often are you doing that? Just about daily?
Every single day. Yep, Monday through Friday.
You're a madman. We'll have links in the description for that. We'll also have links in the description where you can check out everything regarding the Titans from Tyler, including social media and anything that can help you become an educated Titans fan. We'll have it there in the description area for Tyler. So again, Tyler, thanks for doing this. I look forward to talking to you hopefully at some point during the season.
Yep. Thanks so much. Football's back.
Yes. Thank God. Thanks, Tyler. All right, that's Tyler Rowland. And again, check out Tyler's work. He does a really good job. The YouTube link is there as well. very animated, which is what you want to see. Somebody that really, really is passionate about his team. That's why we like having Tyler on. Look, it's good that Tyler said what he said about that week 1 game, because if you've watched some of our other shows, of course, we did an AFC South preview, we did an AFC West preview, and both times we were looking at week 1 games, and we've done other things regarding week 1. And just about any time that we mention either of those divisions and those teams, Denver and Tennessee, we talk about week 1, we talk about the line, and Jim mentions that I think he said he was able to get Denver at 6.5, I believe. Now, this was about a month ago, might have even been longer than a month ago. So Jim gave that advice at that time, and now the line has gone up to 7.5. So the line keeps going up. So unfortunately, I don't know if the value's there, but still, if Tyler's right and they're going to be a 2-touchdown type of game, then hey, why care about 7.5, 6.5? Semantics, right? Buy the half point if you want to, just to be sure in case there's a backdoor kind of cover situation, a late touchdown. But it does look like some of the smart minds, Tyler, Jim Feist, say take the Denver Broncos week 1. And again, right now they're a 7.5 point favorite. Overall, I do like the direction of this team. I like the general manager. Don't know about Callahan. We'll find out. I think he deserves a shot. Love his father. Best offensive line coach in the game. No question about it. There's still a lot of warts on this team, and they are clearly the 4th place team. No doubt about it. Just had a conversation yesterday regarding the Jacksonville Jaguars. You can check that out. That was a long conversation, by the way. That was an hour and a half. So you can check that out. And that and Jacksonville's the second choice. Then you have the Colts the third, and then Tennessee a little far back. That makes sense. Okay, all that makes sense. And I don't think any of that is out of whack. I don't see any like bargains there. So overall, I think it comes down to, will Indianapolis be able to get something out of their quarterbacks? Can Daniel Jones have some sort of revival? Can they maybe use this season as motivation because their owner passing away? Because that will come into play at the very least week 1 against the Dolphins. But what kind of so nobody knows. I mean, it could be a disaster in Indianapolis. Then they get rid of, because, new ownership, and it's new ownership now. So new decision makers. So do they end up in a disastrous season and then finally say enough of this, GM out, head coach out, we're cleaning house, we're bringing a new group in? That could happen. And I think I think it's almost 50-50 on that happening. And then the Colts, maybe finding Daniel Jones or Richardson, maybe they up their game a little and the Colts are competing for a playoff berth or something. So I think that's 50-50. And that's I don't even know if Colts fans would prefer just the whole clean house deal. They might. As far as Jacksonville, I think they should be the second team. Again, I think Jacksonville has the opportunity more than any other team in this division to take the next step and maybe make a big jump if Houston takes a step back. That's the question. Houston, don't forget, schedule got tougher last year, being a first place team, and it showed on the field. And, there were some situations where they still didn't even look like in some weeks that they were a first place team. Well, now they got another first place schedule again. And CJ Stroud, is he ready to take another step? What about that offensive line? It's pretty bad. I mean, that is one of the least effective looking offensive lines in the NFL Houston has. Otherwise, there's a lot of talent on that team. And just like the Jacksonville Jags, they got some premium talent. With Tennessee, starts with Cam Ward, and then you talk about guys like Jeffrey Simmons, of course, and there's some really nice, most besides Simmons, most of what you like with the Titans are young players. And that's where the GM comes in, and you got to trust the GM. That's why I like the Jags. I like Gladstone. I think they got the right guy there. And I think Tennessee's got the right guy here. So now it's going to take time for some of these teams to develop. And look, maybe if Indianapolis cleans house at the end of the season, they'll be a season behind or two, a season behind at least with Tennessee. They'll be, again, a season behind away from Jacksonville. But they'll get the jump start too early, as soon as possible. And again, maybe what's worse for the Colts fans is if Indianapolis has a 500 season and they keep the head coach and they keep the GM and they do it again. That probably drive Colt fans mad. But Houston, I think Houston, this is going to be an interesting season for them to either take the next step themselves. Don't just win a playoff game at home, which is nice, but go to that second round game and just, all right, yeah, we were competitive, but yeah, I mean, we just don't have the team. Whether it's our offensive line is terrible or whatever the case may be, we just can't get over the hump. Well, that's going to be important for Houston too. They've got to make that, because sooner or later, once these other teams in this division, Jacksonville and especially even Tennessee, start to develop with these young players, they're going to start catching up to Houston. And going into seasons, it's not going to be easy for Houston. It's been easy for the past year or two for Houston, past couple of years for Houston. And will it be easy this year? I don't think so. I think it's going to be actually harder than the last couple of years. So just imagine what it'll be like next year and the year after that if Tennessee and Jacksonville just keep getting better because they got the right people in charge. So that's my little rant there on my little spiel on the AFC South. Again, Tyler Rowland, great to have him on board. We've already talked about Jacksonville. Ken Sterling will be on to talk about the Colts at some point in the next couple of weeks. And then, of course, we'll talk Houston as well with Cole Thompson. So we'll have the whole AFC South, just like every other team in the NFL. We have our college football interview coming up live at 4:00. So that's in about an hour from now. We are going to have a new guest, somebody that we have not had on the Arledge Football Network before, talking Iowa State football, Big 12 football. We've already talked about Oklahoma State, BYU. I think that's it in the Big 12. You can check out all of these interviews, of course, on the channel here at Proline TV. So make sure to subscribe. Hit that like button. It's really important. That helps us to grow, and we really appreciate that, including, of course, subscribing. All of that stuff, very important. So we can continue to give you the very best content out there. Get you ready for the NFL, college football, fantasy football. By the way, give us about another week or so. We're going to get into fantasy football. I'm going to have Jared Smollett join us from Draft Sharks. Draft Sharks does a tremendous job. They have a great stable of fantasy experts. That back-to-back years, they have won awards, individual awards for the best fantasy football analysts regarding rankings, preseason rankings, and how it turns out for the entire season. Well, they've hit it back-to-back years. So we're going to talk to Jared Smollett at some point in the next week or two about dynasty football, things of that nature, overall fantasy. So again, join us here at Proline TV. I know we're talking about other sports. We do. NASCAR, golf, horse racing, everything, hockey, baseball, basketball, all of it. I mean, not all of it, but we talk about a lot of stuff here on the channel. But hey, right now it's football season. At least that's what we're buying, even though it's only late July. Join us here, and you won't regret it. We're going to inform you the very best we can. And along with Jim Feist and Mark Lawrence, we have two of the most educated and informed handicappers that you'll ever see in this country. And they're here at one channel. So check us out. By the way, tomorrow at 1:00 Eastern, the Playbook ATS podcast. That's when Mark gets along in the same room with Jim Feist, Andy Isco. I'm going to be joining the three of them during the preseason because we're going to be doing all sorts of previews. We've already done 3 top conference previews, FBS previews. We're going to be concluding that with the SEC tomorrow at 1:00. Then we're going to do the group of 5 next week. Then we talk NFL after that, leading us all the way to the beginning of the season. Then I'm going to jump off of that show because I'm going to be hosting other shows on this channel. And I'm going to leave that show to the handicappers, the professional handicappers, because those guys are some of the best handicappers in the industry. And these guys have been doing it for a long time. And if you really want to know what's going on in that industry, you want to check them out and ask questions, man. Just comment. These guys have so much information in their minds that they're completely open to answering anything that you have in mind, whether it's a game, a tip, or anything, just as far as to be educated in how you can actually do well in gambling without losing your skin. So that's going to wrap it up, though, here for this coverage of the Tennessee Titans here on Proline TV, the Arlets Football Network. And again, we'll see you at 4 o'clock. That's the only other live show we have here on board today as we talk Iowa State football. And then we'll see you also real soon, talking more NFL football. And I think that's going to be, I don't think we have anything else this week. We'll probably do that again sometime next week. So we'll see you real